I changed my mind. I don't want a pod anymore. I changed my mind.
So how you been?
No! It's Sunday. Sunday fun day. Just kidding. I
There's
woke up.
nothing fun about Sunday.
It just means Monday's around the corner. Ugh.
Yeah. Hooray.
Hooray. I mean, we've both gotten a lot done though this weekend.
Yeah. I opened a jar for Alex.
Yes. Well, we woke up today and we went grocery shopping. And I woke up at 7 and then I was just like, I'm too tired. Because last night we stayed up late building a little mudroom coat rack slash shoe storage slash bench situation, which that was a shit show. Uh, I would have given up without Bill's help. There might be some tape on the back of it to keep it together, but no one has to see the back.
Because it didn't come with the goddamn instructions.
It didn't come with the instructions, but I found the instructions for it online. But then
that may or may not have been right.
I think it was. I mean, it was close enough, but none of the pieces matched the instructions, so we had to just be like, I don't know, this girl looks like this, and then it was just, and everyone's seen those things where it's like the little locky screws, like the little locky circles and the screws, and you build it. They suck, and they didn't work for half of that, so it's being held together by hopes and dreams. But we stayed up late to do. We finished building that at 10.
Yeah.
And we started building it at 6, so it took us 7, 8, 4 hours. It took us 4 fucking hours to build that.
It sure did.
We did, but then I went to bed late, and then I woke up and I was like, no. And then I gave myself an extra half hour, and then I said, all right, if we want to get grocery shopping out of the way without it being chaotic and full of people, let's just go. So we went, and then
the best times to go grocery shopping are either really early at the butt crack of morning or super late, right before closing.
Yeah. So, but I got my groceries, and so I was doing laundry, but then I was also meal prepping for the week because I haven't been very motivated recently, and I, have been feeling a lot better about things, with dance and stuff, taking a break from it, which has been good. So I've been a lot more motivated to do stuff, so I meal prepped for the first time in a while. So I made American chop suey, and then one of my best dish. It's the only dish I'm really good at making. It's roasted Parmesan roasted Brussels sprouts. But I got cauliflower this time, so I did cauliflower and Parmesan roasted Brussels sprouts. But I got that nice Parmesan that's not the powder. It's the actual grated, little grated strips. And I had just been, in order to make the Brussels sprouts, I put them in a bowl, and I put all the spices and the seasonings, and then the powdered cheese, and then I use olive oil, so my hands were all oily, and I washed my hands 6 times, and it just wouldn't go away, and I couldn't open the jar, so I called Bill, and I was like, Bill, can you please come open this for me? I can't get it open. So Bill came over, and he opened the jar for me.
Yep.
And I rewarded it by giving him 2 portions of my American chop suey. So, did you try it?
I haven't ate yet. I'm probably going to eat between podcasts.
Okay. Are you going to eat that?
Probably.
All right. You can tell me how it is. If it's not good, I'm sorry. I thought it came out good when I ate my portion. So, but yeah, Bill had to help me open the jar, and he had to help me build a cabinet entry mudroom doorway thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you drinking anything?
I have a ginger ale.
What are the calories?
Who cares?
I care.
Yeah, well.
Tell everyone.
That's what I say to you.
Everyone facts, Phil. Everyone cares. Don't tempt me to look it up, Phil. Tell us a fact. Tell us one fact, and I'll be.
It's It's soda, and even if it's a slightly better for you soda, it's still a soda, and it's not good for you.
All right, all right. That I'll take it. Do you want to know what I'm drinking?
Are you drinking a Sprite?
I know. I'm drinking a Sprite, which is a lemon lime soda. It has uh 230 calories per bottle. 20 fluid ounces per bottle. That's 1.25 pounds. 591 milliliters for those who want to know. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Zero fat. Am I muted? Okay, you didn't mute me. Right? No, turn that fucking music off, Bill. We've been through this before. Stop the music. At least make it like clown music. Then it would be more fitting. 110 milligrams of sodium. That's a lot of sodium. Zero protein. 63 grams of sugar. Yikers. Uh, not significant source of trans fat. I'm just gonna dance. I'm gonna dance. I'm gonna dance. Bill is looking. I'm gonna with my. I've just been dancing with my soda. What else? What? It's carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, citric acid, and natural flavors, and you can recycle it. Should I scan for more info?
No.
It says you can scan. Can you see it?
Oh, that's cool. Whatever.
You gotta dance, Bill. You gotta dance with your soda. Dance with your soda, and I'll be done. Where's the music? Turn the music back on. I like that music. Turn it back on.
We're done with
this. Turn that fucking music back on.
No! So...
I'm gonna sip my drink and ignore you.
That's fine. So yesterday we decided to go to the movies for the first time, and since we saw...
Turn the no one cares about your facts off.
Oh yeah, that's still there.
It's distracting.
So we went to the movies for the first time, at least for me anyways, since Spy Family. So it's been a bit.
It wasn't for me. I'd literally gone 2 weeks ago to see the Wicked movie.
Yeah.
Which I will say, tangent, great movie. Loved it. If you like the play Wicked, you'll like the movie. Anyways.
Yeah. So we had gone to go see the movie we're going to be talking about today on this episode. And I have to say, movies, I swear to God, the ads get longer and longer every time you go to a fucking movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because it's like you got the pre-ads, and then you get the actual ads.
Maria Menounos. Go away. No one cares about Newbie.
And they play. I remember when they played the same ad twice, just in a row. It was like,
yeah, it was like the same. It was the same Wicked ad too. And it was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, that's all they got to talk about right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie, but you know, we have another commercial.
Yeah, I always hate the pre-commercials because it's like, this sucks. Like, no one cares about this shit.
Yeah.
I always love when they bring up the Fathom events, because like I remember those back in the day were always like, that's where the anime films would always go, but now anime films just get normal releases.
Yeah, no, they really like, now they're just like, all right, go see it. Like, even if it's not like a real movie, like the movie we just saw.
Yeah, like holy shit.
And like full theater, like that theater was packed. Like not the front, but like for the most part. Like,
I wouldn't say packed. Like, you theoretically, if you wanted to change seats, you probably could have gone most places and been fine.
Yeah.
There was more people in there than I thought. That's all I would say.
Yeah, it was pretty full.
Because I know the other films that were coming out were obviously Wicked was in theaters, the Gladiators 2, and then Moana 2. There was a lot of children going to see Moana 2. That theater must have been a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Multiple theaters, because there was multiple showings.
And I remember too, because the one, so we went to see Solo Leveling ReAwakening.
Yes.
And our theater was like shoved in the back, like way in the back. So it was like, oh yeah, this is clearly it's here just because they know some people will come see it.
Yeah.
I always think so what I found interesting was this was a rated R film, so there wasn't a ton of kids in there.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
There actually wasn't. I don't think there was any kids in there. period,
No,
which
I
was
don't think so. Which was very smart because I kind of forget how like dark the show can get at times and how
not even just the show, the fucking ads before it, like were all like
oh
rated R
yeah.
films, and I was like, holy shit, they don't give
Yeah.
a crap anymore.
It's like funny how like I don't know, like it's weird. Like I feel like movies are just like there's you watch trailers and you're just like there's nothing appealing about that. Like you're just like you're so not I don't know about if it's the same for you, but like everyone I watched I was like meh, meh. The only one I wanted to see was the Sonic movie.
Yeah, the
That was
Sonic 3
it.
trailer actually looks I mean, I still got to see Sonic 2. I heard Sonic 2 is really good.
We
I
gotta do like we gotta rewatch Sonic 1, rewatch and then go watch Sonic 2, and then when Sonic 3 comes out, we can go and see that. Because I actually really want to see it really badly.
Yeah, it looks really good. I'm actually amazed at how the quality and consistency is kept up with those films. I mean, Jim Carrey carries a lot of it, but
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Well,
that was like
also I'll never get over the redesign, and thank
well,
God they did.
I mean, imagine that a director actually listens to fans, like, and it works. Like, wow,
Yeah.
crazy, crazy. Um, but yes, so we saw that. I still remember like the fucking Mufasa trailer came up, and I just over my breath went, "This looks like garbage," and you were like, "That's so mean," and I was like, "Am I wrong?"
Yeah, I mean, like I didn't see the first one either. Like the first one they did in the almost live action. It's not live
No,
action.
it's all CG and it looks like shit.
I don't know. I
Like
just that's the thing. Like that's the thing about like Disney keeps going down that route of like taking
creative
franchises
bankruptcy.
and like making them like a live action version because they're doing it with Lilo and Stitch too. But I'm just like,
Do
you know what's part of like the
did we
charm of a
ask?
lot of those classic movies is like the hand drawn animation and how wonderful and charming it is. Like it just like I don't know, it just takes away from it to me. I don't know.
What
Well, like
happened to
because
like
even like
original ideas?
I saw like a clip of like it was Moana, the original Moana, but it was like the like test like the I forget I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like the test work that they do, like the first round of animation. And it was all hand drawn and like it looked was I don't know what it is, but like I feel like the CGI, like the 3D animation just takes away from that like charming and like really creative. I don't it just seems so like commercialized when it's 3D. I don't know why it does, but like it just does for some reason. Like you should really look at it because like it like replayed the scene of like when she was a baby and when it was like tousling her hair and stuff like the ocean was. And it was so cute. Like the hand drawn version. It was like the 3D like it was still
Well,
fine, but I don't
there's
know.
just
I
a
just love hand drawn animation.
hand drawn or practical like animation effects. Like I always think like the biggest example for me is like Thomas the Tank Engine, like the original model series compared to the CGI series, and it's like
Yeah.
the CGI got better over time, but it's so soulless compared to the original like
Yeah.
models and stuff.
Yeah. Like JJ's up playing soulless face. Those
I mean
eyes.
that was garbage regardless.
That was a
Um,
great show. What are you talking about? But yeah, Mufasa doesn't look good, but it's coming out the same. I sent Bill a reel of it, but it was like a guy talking about like someone was saying it was a skit, but his friend was going, "Oh yeah, you're gonna see Mufasa?" And he's like, "No, I'm going to see the Sonic movie." And the friend's like, "You're gonna see the Sonic movie?" He's like, "Yes, because I want a movie about this," and he's explaining everything. And then he ended up going, "Who's gonna win? The battle of the Disney adults or the Sonic fan base?"
both are equally as unhinged, so I mean,
Yeah, I feel like the Sonic is gonna win because it just looks like a
well,
much more fun movie.
it
Plus,
helps too
Shadow
that
has a gun. They gave him the gun, and
yeah,
I'm
but
all
you also got to believe, you got to understand it's the previous two films have been well received. I
yeah,
don't see why the third one is going to be a dip in quality, and they're basing it off of arguably the most popular storyline in the series. I debate whether that's a good story, regardless, but it's
but they
based off of
gave
what
Shadow has a gun. I saw it in the trailer. I was like,
the
"Thank
gun.
you."
People always
I'm
bring that up.
surprised they kept it.
The guns were the least offensive part of that game. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, like, there's the death of like the blonde girl in space. Like that's gonna be in the movie. What was her name? It was like Mary.
Maria.
Maria, yeah. I can't wait for the Sonic 06 one, and so we can see Elise die. No, just
Well, no,
kidding.
I want the Sonic X adaptation where he just beats the shit out of Chris Thorndyke because that was the
Oh
best part of
hell yeah!
that was the best part of that damn show.
Whenever I think of that show, I just think of the stupid grandpa jokes we kept going.
Yeah, well, I mean that show's abysmal. So
What was it? It was like we just kept joking about how he wants to like touch
because he
them.
was trying to, well, no, he was trying to take the batteries out of Sonic because he thought he was a robot, and you kept
Oh.
making jokes about he was shoving the screwdriver up his, Um,
Okay.
we had to have some fun to get through that fucking dumpster fire of a
That was
cartoon of an anime.
awful. Oh, Chris Thorndyke. Oh. Anyways, back to so we were yeah we got the trailers did take a while. Some of them were interesting, some of them weren't that great. I mean, oh that scared me. Did you hear that?
Yes.
I just like that like
Yeah.
sound. Yeah, that was her auto feeder. I forgot it goes off at 4:15.
Lovely.
She didn't
Yeah.
run though. She didn't make no moves. She doesn't care.
She's in a food coma right now.
Any other trailers that were interesting or?
Not really. Most of the trailers, I'm like, some of them make me just uncomfortable. Like they dive so deep into stereotypes in trailers now that I'm always like, I don't even know who this movie's for.
Yeah, or like I don't know. I feel like sometimes too, like they make the trailer so not like the movie at all that you have no
They've
idea
been
what
doing
you're
that for
going.
years.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't know. And also, every time I see a Marvel trailer recently, I'm just like, meh. Like
Well,
none of them ever seem interesting to me anymore.
to be fair, that's a Sony movie. That's not a Marvel movie, but
Oh, I thought it said Marvel.
well, it's a based off. So Sony has the rights to certain Marvel characters because of the whole like the Spider-Man stuff.
Oh.
Basically, if Marvel wants to use Spider-Man, Sony gets to basically make a shit ton of movies based off of specific properties. That's where God of Morb came from.
Morbin time. Oh, so
Yeah,
that's why Craven is that what it's was it called?
yeah,
Craven.
Craven the Hunter. It's actually a very iconic storyline in Spider-Man, but I don't know Sony's
Oh,
track
it's
record
Spider
is
Man. Oh.
it's related to Spider-Man. Well, I mean, it's a Marvel character, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like
It didn't look interesting to me.
Sony's track record is either the movies are just bad or they're like the Venom movies where they're just kind of boring.
Yeah, even like I don't know. I also like. Do you feel like movies just look so dull recently? Like there's
To
no
a
color.
degree.
There's no like that movie just looked like in terms of like the color scale. Like it just looked really dull. And I feel like if you want me that maybe that's why I wanted to see the Sonic movie because it was like bright colors and it looked fun and like
Ironically, based off one of the most edgelord fucking storylines in Sonic history.
yeah,
But
with one of the most edgelord Sonic
I'm not
characters.
gonna lie though, that blowing up the moon scene, that was pretty epic. I
Yeah,
kind of can't wait to see that in the movie theater.
I want to see it. But yeah, I don't know. Everything else just looked like because then there was one that was like off the John Wick
Oh yeah,
movie.
that the John Wick spinoff. That I mean, John Wick is good entertainment if like you just want some like senseless like violence and action.
Yeah, I've never seen a John Wick movie, so I have no idea. But I was
It's
like,
just like insane action and violence, and they're just
see,
entertaining.
I don't know. Like, see, like if I want to watch insane action and violence, I tend to just watch anime. So
The way
I feel
I
like
think
that's
of this might piss some people off, but the way I think of like the John Wick films is kind of like how I think of Fast and Furious.
mhm.
You don't watch it for the plot; you just watch it for the entertainment factor, and then once you're done
Yeah,
with it, you move on.
yeah. It's not saying like a very deep movie or anything.
No, like let's face it, like I'm not watching Fast and Furious for the fucking plot. I'm watching it for the fucking insane like car shit because that's just
Yeah.
what you watch those movies for.
Any other trailers that were interesting or
Not really. Most of them I was just kind of like I don't even know what this is.
Maria Menounos? Get off my movie screen.
Go back to Bar Rescue. I don't know.
Isn't Bar Rescue dead or
I don't
something?
know. I
It's not
haven't
as good anymore, I feel like.
well, COVID ruined it like it ruined everything. So,
Yeah. Womp, womp, womp.
but
But
So yeah, we went to go see the Solo Leveling movie.
Took
Movie
us
of
about
admissions.
20 minutes to get there, but we finally got there. Yeah.
Yeah. So a little backstory to hype this up. Alex watched Soul Leveling quite a while ago, and she was basically like, after watching it, like, you got to watch this damn movie, watch this show. It's great. There's a movie coming out. You need to watch it. And
Yeah,
the
because
whole,
I wanted someone to go with me to the movie so I could see the movie.
yeah. So I did relent like 2 weeks ago and watched the series, and I will admit that it takes. It's one of those. So it's not technically it's not like an anime. It's technically a Korean property.
I don't
Um,
know if there's a different, because I know there's a different term for
well,
manga,
it's
like
still an
manga and
anime because it was
manhwa.
made by Japanese studios, but
True.
it's based off a Korean manhwa.
I
So
gotta say too, some of like the Korean manhwa stories that are coming out are so cool. Like Soul Leveling is great, and I got into Tower of God this year too, which I believe was also by a Korean artist.
it's a
But
different style. Like it's a
they're
very
I feel like they don't always go for like those classic anime tropes. Like I feel
well
like
no,
they
like
try and
because
be very different, which
Solo
is
Leveling is literally a kind of like it takes a common anime concept and just turns it on its head.
yeah. I guess,
Like
and I guess we can kind of talk about that since the movie is somewhat.
yeah,
So yeah, going back and re-explain. So I watched it and I said, "This is fucking great, Phil. There's a movie coming out. You got to watch this series to have some context." And I honestly had no idea what the movie was going into it, so I'm sorry, but you should
so
have watched it when I first told you to watch it.
well, I had to finish the other series I was already watching at the time because I didn't want
No,
to.
you could pause and restart.
I don't like doing that. Then that it was
Sorry.
it was a particularly busy time for me at the time. So
Yeah.
that being said, yeah, so I watched the series, and I guess we'll cover. So the reason why we're kind of a little all over the place is the first half of this movie is very much a trope that a lot of anime films have been doing lately, where it is the first like
Well,
legit.
I think though we should clear they aren't really films. They're making them
No,
movie releases, but they're basically they're trying to hype up the next season, and by doing that, they're basically making a recap of the series while releasing maybe the first 2 or 3 episodes of the
yeah,
series and calling it a movie. So it's really not a movie.
yeah, no, it was definitely a case of
Money
so the
grab.
I not money grab, it was mostly to hype the next
Yeah.
season up. Um and to see if they could catch any like casuals who were just curious.
Hmm.
That being said though, the first half of the film is literally a recap of the first season, but it cuts it down pretty significantly.
Yeah. I think
They
it highlights some of the biggest major fights in it. Because
the
I mean,
major fights and then some character elements.
yeah, because the movie opens with the scene of him in that very first
The
dungeon
double
that goes
dungeon,
wrong,
yeah.
the double dungeon that goes wrong, and it's basically the part where he's been abandoned by his. Well, for we should probably explain the premise of the show before we probably get.
Yeah.
It will make more
So
sense.
solo leveling is essentially a the gimmick of solo leveling is it takes the isekai like idea, but it completely flips it over. Where instead of like the characters being sent to a video game world, instead the entire real world has been isekai.
Yeah,
And
the world is now a video game
yeah,
world basically with video game rules. And it's pretty neat how like it ends up working too cuz like basically what happens is that like now suddenly these dungeon portals are starting to appear all around the world. And at first everyone was like, "Oh shit, what are we going to do about this?" Because you need to basically clear the dungeons or like the monsters will come out of the dungeons is the basic theory. So they needed people to do that. Well, eventually people started gaining skills in order to combat the dungeons, and they're called hunters. And the hunters like have different classes. So there's S all the way to E. And in this world, it's actually really interesting the concept of like whatever class you are given, that is all you can achieve. You cannot gain any
yeah,
more skills, which is I think one of the coolest parts of the show.
yeah. So the way it is kind of, it's essentially all the characters in the show, like the people that awaken and become hunters.
Yes.
They're essentially in, like, say like in an RPG or an MMO or something, they're essentially the non-player characters where they have set basic stats.
Yeah.
And they're basically forever like that once they gain their special abilities.
Yeah.
Um
So if you're like a C class player, you will never go above a C. And if you're an S class player, you're basically, well, S class hunter, because they're not really players. You're just a magical lucky to be an S class right away.
yeah,
So
it's like you get gifted with like the ultimate power from they're essentially super bosses right from the beginning.
yeah, like they're just like, damn, like all this power, and they can just do whatever they want with it. But like it sucks is like, so the main character, Jinwoo, he is an E class, and he basically like, in his family life is his father is gone. He has a sister who's about to go to college, and their mother is sick, because of the world changing and becoming like this almost video game world. It created like different illnesses, and there's really no way to treat it, which kind of like sucks. So part of his motivation too, at some, which they cut out of the film, because I believe when he went to the Hell Dungeon.
Yeah, they completely cut that because they cut out the training montage where he gets the key and then the trip
Yeah,
to the dungeon.
the Hell. Well, he went to that first dungeon, but he didn't go to Hell Dungeon.
Well, yeah,
So,
the hell dungeon where because he got the
um,
key during his workout.
yeah, um, and uh, but one of the like prizes of the Hell Dungeon was like a cure, like it was a cure all or something, because his mom basically, like, there's no treatment to her stuff. So, but right now he's an E class hunter, and basically E classes are very very weak. They can't do much of anything, and they kind of just tag along on missions to basically be carry things. Like you can actually see clips of him like trying to fight and just failing because he just is not strong enough. Um, but he's a hunter because he needs to, one, take care of his sister, and two, pay for his mother's hospital bills, which is very hard on an E class salary.
Yeah, especially when in pretty much every battle he attempts to do, he just gets hurt the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, and there's like nothing he can do. So he ends up going on a raid, and it's just a regular dungeon. I think it was a C class dungeon because I think that's the highest he could go into with a party of other. And how it works too is that basically there's all these different companies and guilds out there that basically coordinate, and they're constantly looking like they almost like put like help wanted like post job postings out there, and hunters just go based on if they're called to it, if they see it's available, or if they're in a large party. But sometimes in the world, which was interesting, is your party ends up being just random people. You might not necessarily know everyone you're going with. You probably eventually, like, Jinwoo knew some of them just from past experience. Like one of them was the healer of the party, and she had basically always kind of tagged along with him because she was kind of worried he was going to die. And she was an B class healer or an A class. I think she was B or an
I
A.
believe she was B class. Like I think she was actually a lot of people. I think the whole thing with her was like a lot of people point out she was way too powerful to be hanging out with this group.
Yeah, but she was basically hanging out to basically save Jinwoo most of
Well,
the time.
also she was a bit of a pacifist. Like she didn't actually want to do any of this.
Yeah, but it almost was probably like she felt like she should just based on her class and her abilities. Um, but they go into this dungeon. It's a group of random people, and it seems really normal until the phenomenon of a double dungeon appears. And then the group kind of decides, like, they do a vote, and it's basically 50-50 of like, okay, should we go into this double dungeon or should we turn back and call someone? And Jinwoo ends up being the final vote, and he says, no, we should move forward. Probably the best worst mistake of his life.
Well, yeah, because that entire dungeon ends up being like an absolute like hell for all of them. Like half of them
Yeah.
die, like very brutally.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
very violent show.
Well, for most people have probably seen one of the most iconic images of this show is the
The statue with the
smiling.
slasher smiles.
This,
Yeah.
yeah, because basically they're thrown into this room, and this is kind of where the intro scene of the movie comes in, which is also like the first couple of episodes this arc. I think first one or two.
Yeah, and
They're
it's
in this.
essentially just a giant test. Like it's one of those like imagine a game where like the entire room is based around like it's like a giant logic puzzle, and if you fail the puzzle, you die.
Yeah, like
And
so. Well, because some of the statues were like warriors, knights, guards, had swords and weapons, while other of them had instruments and music. So they had to eventually, with the dungeon, they had to activate the statues that were the music to stop the ones that were the violent ones. But at
yeah,
this point, half the party was dead.
yeah,
Like,
they had already fucked up because literally the only person using logic and sense at the time was Jinwoo, and everyone else
yeah.
was just straight up in panic mode, giving up.
Well, Jinwoo and the long
The
haired
older,
hunter, the
the
older
older
hunter who lost his
mentorish,
arm.
yeah, the
He
older more
loses.
mentorish
Yeah.
hunter.
But eventually, what happens is, like, after they solve the first round of the puzzle, well, the next round of the puzzle is kind of a you need to watch the statues or they will kill you. So it's kind of like stare until the time the clock ends
Yeah,
or they
it's
will attack.
basically a waited out kind of situation, but like of course because the way it turns it on its head from say a video game is these are real people in this
Yeah.
world, and they
Yeah.
all have families, which they make a big point of, which that comes in later. We probably
Yeah.
won't go super deep into it, but like um
This is though I
basically
feel like this is necessary to talk about just to get you
yeah,
starting on what the concept of the show is because this first episode is the first two
yeah,
episodes are very impactful to how the plot goes.
yeah.
Um,
Basically everybody pushes out because there's a like a door that you can like escape out of, but like it the way it works is one person's not going to get out because once
yeah,
because it's slowly closing, they only have limited time.
yeah,
And basically the entire because Genu at this point is missing a leg, like he is just
yeah. Gina's missing
screwed.
a leg.
He
Well,
doesn't lose
it's
his arm
only
until
like the
after they
bottom
ditch
half.
him.
Yeah, the
Yeah, but
bottom half of his
it means
leg.
he can't physically escape on his own.
No, he needs someone to carry him, and it eventually ends up like one by one,
They all ditch.
everyone ditches, and the last ones are Jinwoo, the mentor, and the female healer, which I'm brain farting on their names. Which the names are also tricky to remember because
Yeah,
they're not the usual Japanese
they're
names.
they're
They're
all
all
Korean
Korean names.
names and they're
Um,
very hard to remember.
so we're
Not to be
working.
offensive, it's just one of those things where it's like
Well, it's
I'd
just
have
like
to.
we've watched a lot of anime, and this is also very different
Well,
from.
they're all very hard to remember names and they all sound similar to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
Like I believe
Um,
the Jean was the main character, and I believe his sister is like Jeanwa or something or
yeah.
Gina.
Um,
So yeah, stuff like
but
that.
what ends up happening is the mentor, like, eventually Jean was like, okay, the door needs to close. You need to leave. I will. Basically, he says he doesn't want to, but he basically is choosing to sacrifice himself because he's the weakest link and he
Yeah,
can't leave at this point.
well, because
So
the
the
mentor
mentor
initially
knocks
like
her. Oh, you.
well, I was gonna say the mentor initially wants both of them to escape because they have lives ahead of them, but
Yeah.
he realizes really fast that the the mage character, she's completely like
She's not
coma
gonna
like
leave him behind.
well, she's also completely just like mentally not functioning at the time. Like her
Yeah.
brain is just given up on her because
Which
she's
at this point, watching people die very brutal deaths, and also she did not want to go into the double dungeon. She was one of the part of the group that said, "We should turn around. I don't want to do this," which also kind of makes you understand some of the people leaving and ditching. Because some of them were those people who voted to not continue in the dungeon. They didn't sign up for this. I think most of the people who said they wanted to continue actually were a lot of the ones who were killed off very quickly.
yeah.
Um, but like you can kind of see, like she's just mentally not not there, and like probably would not leave at that point because she probably physically, but also mentally just couldn't. So eventually, Gene was the only one in, and basically he's being brutalized
Yeah,
by.
he's just like there's a lot of religious kind of imagery going on here too. Like there's the
Yeah,
author definitely has there's a bit of author tract going on. Um
yeah.
I'm not going to get super into that, but it is just something I noticed.
Yeah, and then this is where the movie kind of begins. This scene of him
Yeah.
he's basically like,
He's dead.
and
Like, for
he's
all intents and
he's gonna
purposes.
die. He's starting to like be like, I regret ever like. He's like, this isn't how I wanted to live my life. If only I could be stronger. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a video game screen pops
Yeah,
up.
he gets a pop-up menu that basically says quest
Your heart
complete.
is about to stop.
Stop. Do you want to become the player?
Yeah. And
And he says yes. And basically, to quickly kind of, because we're not going to go over the entire series point
yeah.
for point. We'd be here for fucking 4 hours.
No, yeah. But
Basically,
this was necessary to get you
yeah.
into the show.
Basically, what happens is he becomes. They call it a reawakening, which is something that apparently can happen, but his is different. Where his outward like scan level stays the same, but he's literally the player character.
But that's only so that I think is not that is going to change. I think at the moment they rescanned him, he was still at an E rank, but I feel like at the show where he is now, he would probably go in at something else. But basically, where no one else can, well, kind of what the show solo leveling, he's the only person who can level up in this
He's
world.
The player character.
Yeah.
Like he's literally, I kind of like connected it with RuneScape, where he is literally the player in RuneScape, where he's just kind of, it's a very interesting parallel where I like the idea where the protagonist is literally a loose cannon that doesn't play by the world's rules.
Yeah.
Because he has like these daily tasks that come up, and like he slowly starts getting stronger and stronger. He'll get like different like daily missions that he has to do, and if he doesn't do it, he gets penalized for it.
Yep.
And basically he is basically now limitless. Like he's essentially an OP character, but like it's not done in the same way that like say like Chainsaw Man is done, where it's kind of just a dumb gimmick. It's more not Chainsaw Man, One Punch Man, I should say.
Okay, I was like, huh?
Man, both done by Mappa, you know.
Yeah. Well, one of them, not really.
We'll see. But yeah, he just like kind of goes through like the first like season, like slowly getting stronger and stronger. Like
and some
his
of the
immediate
stuff, like,
his immediate appearance is already drastic. Where he's like he goes from being this scrawny like guy in the hospital to suddenly being ripped within 3 days.
So like, and part of that too is like every day, like the game is requiring him to complete certain tasks. So I think it's like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 something, and then like a certain miles that he has to do every day, or he gets penalized. And penalized means he goes to another world and basically has to run for his life because at
first, and then later he just uses it to grind.
Yeah, but basically the first part of the show is him basically grinding, like him leveling up,
grinding, learning different skills, like kind of obtaining different. Basically, he's doing the RPG thing.
And it's really interesting too because like he also has like being the player character, he has his own rules and tools and weapon. Like he actually has like inventory storage. He doesn't have to carry stuff on his back. Like he can store stuff in this video game inventory, but he also starts collecting different items like keys that open portals to worlds that no one else can access. And that's where we were talking about the hellscape. But because of the game making him do all these changes, it's also physically changing him as he's leveling up, like a video game character would. He starts getting buffer, fitter,
taller. Like basically, there's a scene. I joke because this show is weirdly horny at times. There's a scene where he's getting out of the hospital, and they have all the nurses, and all the nurses are just checking him out. I'm like, this is the weirdest part of this anime.
It's a great part. Daddy's home for those who are in the Dick server.
But there's also a cool scene where it also changes like just how like doing random things day to day like completely will change for him. Like there's a scene where he gets back from a mission where he basically gained a shit ton of money, and he was basically telling his sister, who is one of the best characters in the show, that bills are going to be good for a while. Like we're not going to have to worry. I bought chicken too, and they're eating their dinner, and he's drinking a couple beers, and like he discovers when he drinks a beer, it actually gives him stat buffs.
Well, he was also testing too because like some of the buffs that he is getting, like he has a tolerance to poison now. He is like a poison buff, so when he drinks the beer, he can't get drunk. So that's also what he was testing.
He couldn't get drunk, but he was also leveling up his resistance.
No, yeah. So he has like a bunch of other.
I will say, led to a great scene where like his sister comes and checks on him before going to bed, and she's like, "Whoa, easy on the beer, bro." because he drank the entire fucking 12-pack.
Yeah. So to kind of get back into the movie, basically the first recap of the first season covers some of like the biggest fights in it. So I believe it covers like the first time he goes into a separate dungeon.
Yep.
Then it covers probably one of the biggest scenes, which is when he goes on he goes on a quest with a party of
just
6, no healer, and then 2 randos, which is himself, and then I forget
Genu.
part.
No, not
Genie.
some other
I
Gene
think Genu
character.
is right. I think Genu is right.
Well, there's Gene
But
Woo and then Gene Wu, I think. God damn
anyways,
it.
he is
um,
the young heir to one of the construction company. I think it is Genu because I think it's Genu Construction.
yeah.
Um, but he ends up going the biggest plot point of that is, which is one of the probably big points of the game, is that the party ends up turning on them and they basically leave them left for dead in the
Well, yeah,
dungeon.
because they're
But
they're essentially scam artists where they use this thing to trick these poor saps in, and then they
kill them,
kill them off, and then they get the
they
all the
get
money,
all
and they
the
don't have to
money.
distribute. It's a very RPG thing.
Yeah. But it doesn't work out because Jinwoo is there's also a thing called like a false ranker. And at first, like that's what they think he is. Excuse me, a hiccup. That's what they think he is, but he's not. He's his own thing. He's leveling up.
He
Um,
is not. He doesn't play by the rules of the world. He plays
yeah,
by the rules of the game,
yeah.
basically.
And in that scene, basically, like they end up coming in and they're like, "What the hell? You beat the boss!" And then they find out who the other guy is, which is a rich kid who they don't want to kill because if they killed him, they'd probably be in trouble. So
Well,
they
they
say,
could
"You
also
gotta
use him for
kill."
ransom.
Yeah. So they say, "You gotta kill Jinwoo," and he's like, "No, I'm not." So then they go after Jinwoo. But then one thing that happens to Jinwoo is when he's in a danger situation, the game basically says, "All right, these guys are your enemies now. Kill them
Or you
or
die.
face the penalty." And he basically has to kill them all. And like
Well, like his penalty for not listening is like
it's his
you
heart will
will
stop.
die.
Yeah,
Like,
so he doesn't have a choice unless he wants to die. So he ends up like killing them all brutally. But one
yeah,
of the
and the
guys,
game literally has a mechanic like where it basically he has this inner monologue where he's like, the game is telling me what to do in my life. I am now a slave to the system,
oh yeah,
basically.
that's what comes up a lot. So it ends up covering a lot of the major scenes. Like it goes over eventually him and I think Genu end up Genu's like, "Hey, this guy's probably gonna like make it. So let's pair up together and do a lot of dungeons because he wants to open his own hunting
Well, it's
agency."
because his dad wants to start his own one, so he's kind of working for that. But I'm pretty sure he's going loose cannon, and he's going to start his
Well,
own separate.
his dad he like doesn't believe in like Genu because Genu's only a certain rank, so I think it's a mix of that as well. But Genu's starting his own regardless. But
Yeah,
they end up showing them kind of going out hunting with groups, and like Genu just is
my
able
my
to.
favorite part is the way he basically gets all these like C rank dungeons, and they need a party. So the way is they get a bunch of no lives and like no name hunters that don't give
Like
a shit.
drunks, homeless
Yeah,
people, like
and they're
yeah,
basically like, so we're gonna handle this on ourselves, and you guys just get to hang around, and we'll pay you after. And they're all like, whatever,
yeah,
sure. And then they
and
proceed to just go through like 12 dungeons, and they're like, all right, here's your pay. Let's go, everybody.
yeah. And then another big point too is he actually ends up regrouping. He ends up taking another quest. Like he gets a meeting one while he's kind of waiting on Genu for more
As he
dungeons.
says, beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah. So he ends up going and he actually ends up running into the mentor guy and the girl, as well as 2 other members who were in that double dungeon event. Um, but the catch of this one is that suddenly one of the Hunter Association cars pulls up and 3 criminals come in. And they're basically working on bail. But they die. A lot of people
Everybody,
die.
most people
Oh,
dies because surprise, the guy that's the guy from the association is secretly a scumbag.
yeah, he's just a freaking murderer and he's just
One of my
using his
one of my favorite lines is like when Jinwoo's fighting him, And then like it's like you should really cut down on the bloodlust. You've gotten the system's attention now, and the system's literally going like kill the enemy.
No, yeah, and that's one thing is like if people's bloodlust is too much, it does like change. Like the system makes them a target. But that scene, I wish they showed more of it during the movie.
Well,
But I
yeah,
understand
it
why it cut
cuts
out.
all the development from that scene out in the movie because there's the whole
Yeah,
backstory with the two guys that get killed, where it's like they regret ditching leaving like they did, but they have families, and it shows both their families, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna die. Like
yeah.
you
If
know it
they
right
show the
away.
if they show the family, there's they're not gonna make it. So
Well,
that
no,
was
because they make
kind
a
of
whole. Well, they made the whole point about he's like, this is my last mission. Like, shit, and the wife's like, you need to retire, please.
yeah.
And I'm just like, yep, he's dying. Like, we already know this.
And then I think that's like one of the only other major fights. There's
Well,
other fights in this.
the final scene they show is his the rank change,
Yes,
class
the
change scene.
no, the job class change
Yeah,
mission. Um, which he ends up going, which is probably one of the coolest fights in the show
it
too.
is. They didn't
Um,
abridge this one too badly, but they did abridge it to a degree.
yeah, a little bit, but I actually thought it was pretty good because the first one in he fights I'm freaking farting on the Red Knight,
Oh, Egress.
Egris, the Red Knight, and he ends up fighting him, and then it's like one of those psych. The dungeon just started
Yeah,
after he
it was
beats
like
him.
he beats Egress, who you think is the boss. It's like, no, he's just a really powerful enemy. That
It's
wasn't the
just a
boss of the.
warm up.
Well, the boss wasn't actually a boss. It was a challenge fight.
Yeah. And what's happened, like when he goes into like after Egris is defeated, he basically has like this whole army of like metal of knights in armor who just keep respawning. They're not respawning. There's just more of them keep appearing because there's also mages. And he gets to the point where he can't go on anymore, but luckily he didn't complete his daily task, so he gets
Hmm.
sent to another world where he's able to level up and because every time he levels up, all of his stats go back. So he gets like healed and everything gets like his mana goes back and he basically gets a reset in like a video game. So he goes back, he's able to win, and then his job changes from I think it was like wolf hunter. Like it was like
He was like a weird mix between like a wolf hunter and like an assassin build.
yeah. But then he gets the title of
Necromancer.
necromancer.
Well, it's
Um
interesting because when his previous setup, like he was basically kind of a hodgepodge of a whole bunch of different setups. Like he,
and I think that's gonna stay because I think he can learn so many different skills because he's the player. Just
yeah,
like in RuneScape, you can learn all the different skills. You know, you can level up your magic, your fighting, your health, prayer. Like,
yeah.
there's so many different
But I'm
skills.
pretty sure here he then obtains his actual like real ability that's going to be his signature, which is the necromancy skill,
Yeah, the Shadow Army.
where he can basically, if he defeats an enemy, he can just resurrect them.
Yeah, and
Depending on the skill
resurrect their
level.
soul and have them be a part of the army of shadows that he can summon.
But very specific enemies, like because the last thing it shows before it finally cuts to the actual game, or I mean the actual like the new content for the movie was it shows him resurrect Egress.
Yes.
And when he resurrects a very specific enemy, like a powerful one, he actually gets to name them, and they become kind of like a familiar, like that he can
Yeah.
summon.
Yeah. They become a little bit more special. And those ones might take longer. Might take multiple tries, you know, like in a video game. And if he's not at the appropriate level, he might not be able to put them in his shadow army at all, which doesn't happen with Egress, but does happen in the
Well,
movie.
Egress, they have to show you that like he has to really it kind of showcases that it really takes a lot of effort, and like he
Yeah.
kind of basically has to use all of his will to get Egress to join
Yeah.
him.
Well, and like I loved his speech where he's like, you've been waiting for your king to return. You shouldn't be staying here anymore. You should follow me and join me on the path to like greatness. And then like Egress. And I love his like command too. Arise is just so spooky and like creepy, but like the perfect, just simple word of like to summon the shadow army. Um and like Egress is now basically the leader of his army.
Oh yeah. No,
Shadows.
it was a cool like scene. And then of course after that we go directly to It basically
Season 2.
hard cuts to what is essentially going to be the first couple episodes of season 2. I'm assuming they're going to be fleshed out a little more when the actual episodes come out.
Yeah, I think they will be because you really couldn't tell between episode to episode either. So we'll see like where that break will go in between. But
Yeah. But essentially, like, it picks up right where the series left off, where like his sister's like, bro, you were supposed to come for my
yeah.
student
Well,
teacher
because he's
conference thing.
exhausted. Because in that time from the dungeon, I think he like went originally at like he was in there for multiple hours, so he got home at like very late. So he was sleeping, and he's like, "Oh shit, I gotta go." I gotta go to my sister's student teacher conference, and it's one of the funniest scenes in the movie is when he goes to the school and she's like, "What the hell? Like, what are you
Yeah,
wearing?" And she's like, "I'm dressing nice."
he completely changes his haircut. Like, he's got a new style, new
Nice
like
buzz cut.
new fit. That's not a buzz cut. That's a
Well, like the back, shape,
it's a very common hairstyle. It's not a buzz cut though.
Well, I meant like the back. No, but he's wearing dressing. The new fit though is just because like he wanted to dress nice for her because it's a student teacher conference.
And of course, then we get all the horny high school girls, and it's like Jesus Christ! Like every time.
Daddy's home. Anyways.
I love the fact that he just grabs her face and just
grabs the cheek and is just like, "Come on, dumb."
I love the sister because she's just a snarky.
She's kind of a relationship.
She's just a snarky bitch, and it's lovely.
But he has a teacher conference. And everything goes well with his sister. But at the end of it, the teacher is like, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" Like,
for a second there, I'm not gonna lie, I thought the teacher was gonna come on to him.
I thought she was gonna ask him out too. I also did that, but that's not what happened. He actually she ends up asking him to reach out to his sister's friend, who also she awakened as a hunter, an E-class hunter, like he originally did.
She also was in the gang of misfits that they were using on their hunting escapades.
Yes. And basically the teacher is like, "Hey, she stopped going to school. If there's a way you could convince her to go back to school, like that would be for her best benefit." Because she's an E-class and he knows from experience, like as an E-class, like yes, you can be a hunter, but like you're either going to die in battle or it's not going to be a good time. So the teacher's basically asking her to, asking him to get her hopefully to come back to school. So he ends up going to see her and he ends up taking her along on a mission from, this was also cut out of the movie, but at one point he I think it's the White Tiger
the White Tiger clan or guild, yeah.
White Tiger Guild, one of their top recruiters tries to recruit them because one, they were going through all those dungeons and clearing them like instantly. So he's like, he knows something's up.
Well,
he doesn't know exactly.
Jinwoo is at the point now where he is so like powerful that like it's getting hard for him to hide it at this point, and a lot of people are taking notice.
Yeah. People are starting to know that something is not right. Also, I mean, like just the physical thing of going from like wimpy kid to
He's got that. He has that aura to him too. Like there's a great part where they try to recruit him, and basically Jinwoo like completely just plays this guy and like basically gets him to give him a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
For a couple dungeons, and then they find out, oh wait, there was tons of dungeons. you got played, sir.
Which was pretty great.
But he's also so fucking terrified of Jinwoo because Jinwoo is like so powerful now he can hide his abilities and shit.
And I think he's just so intrigued that he's also just like, I will do anything to keep learning about this guy. So Jinwoo basically reach out to them and is like, "Hey, could I bring this girl on a mission just to see what it's like on a C-class expedition?" Because his goal is to try and scare her to stop being a hunter, which, maybe not his best choice, but but it wasn't
with what happens.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to go how it was supposed to go. It was basically a training dungeon for members of the White Tiger Guild. So it was a class, it was like one A class, several B class, C class, and then they were the only two. I think there might have been maybe a D, but then
I think the D was the guy that one guy that survives.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people are going to die. So the party goes in, and we learn about something called which we didn't learn before, is when a gate goes red. So they're going into the dungeon, and Jinwoo immediately knows something's not right as soon as he steps in. And then of course the world starts changing, and the gate goes red. And before the gate completely closes, because one thing about a red gate is that once the people are in and it turns red, you can't get out until you clear the
You also
dungeon.
can't get in.
Yeah, you can't get out and no one can get in. So
Not even
before,
an S. Not
yeah,
even an S class.
which we'll talk about. So he shoves his head out and is like, it's turning red. Like, I
Call the
don't know,
association.
call the association. But there's really nothing they can do. So they go in and immediately they are in this whole different world. It started, they were originally walking in a cave, and suddenly they're in this barren land, snowy winter land, and immediately someone gets ice arrowed to the fucking face.
Yeah, fuck that guy in particular.
But as that guy was shot, Jinwoo also protects the girl the E class he was with, um, his sister's friend, from getting shot, which catches the eye of the ice elves,
Yeah.
that are their enemies. But the group
Which
basically splits at this point.
Yeah, which is really funny too because the A class is a big meathead and he's basically like taking control because he thinks Jinwoo is an E class. Well, Jinwoo is technically an E class, but he thinks
His
he's
rank is an E class, but he is not an E class at this point. In terms
no.
of physical abilities, he's not an E class, but from his
I love how they
association
all
record.
I know. I just love how they all underestimate him. Meanwhile, this guy's fucking ripped, and it's like
Yeah, well, they can't see that underneath.
he's a
But
fucking massive. Like, how can they not see it?
people are dumb built. They only see the ranks. But so the group splits off, and the
What's
asshole A class guy is like, all right, I'm only taking B and above. One of the D class guy who lives
who
is like,
wants to
I'll go.
join him and
He basically pushes him. Is like, no, you can't stay behind.
stay with the losers? Basically, is what he
But
says.
one of the I think she was a B class mage. She's like, "Can I just stay with them?" And he was like, "Yeah, whatever. Fuck you, bitch." And she was like,
Yeah.
"Fuck you, dude. I'm
Well,
living."
she took well, first off, she was the only person there with a significant character design, so you know she
Yeah.
was important.
Well,
But
and she saw Jinwoo protect
catch that
the
ice arrow.
yeah.
And she
So she
immediately
was like,
knew,
she's
okay.
like, "This guy is not an E class." And I think she actually says it in her head at one point. Um, so they split, and Jinwoo's group is thriving because one, Jinwoo just has a
Because
bunch of
Jinwoo
winter
does
jackets.
everything.
He does everything. He has video game tools, so he basically is able to go in his inventory store and buy a bunch of winter coats so they don't freeze.
Yeah.
While the other group stupidly is just starts fighting. A bunch of
Gets annihilated.
gets annihilated. Well, they fight some of the main enemies of this area are polar bear, like ice polar bears, which polar bears are icy anyways, and then ice elves. So they're doing okay with the polar bears, not
But
great,
ice
but
elves are fucking bastards.
yeah, and the ice elves are also where the boss is as well. Um, and Jinwoo ends up, they end up fighting, and like, while the other four are just having a good time camping, Jinwoo's like,
They're
"I'm
all,
gonna take care of this bear problem," and goes to the bear cave, and it's just like, "Hey guys, you want to join my army?" Well, first he tests the shadow army, and then he's like, "You know what? We could use some bear reinforcements."
well, he tests the shadow army, but then he also has Egress go out and finish off the bear leader.
Yes.
Which is cool because he actually gets to see what Egress can do.
And it's also interesting to see, like, all right, the Shadow Army is such a cool tool, but it also is going to use up a lot of his mana. So that was interesting.
The
But then
one
the
thing that
bears
it didn't,
become the Bear Army.
the one thing that I wasn't really sure about though, because they didn't really explain this in the movie. Maybe they'll get into it later. They show him lose all of his mana,
Yeah.
but then Egress was still able to do stuff. So I wonder if Egress runs off as his own.
So I think it was more like, so the mana was used to revive the soldiers. That's what it said in the movie. So every time like
Okay.
one of them was slashed and brought back, that's when Egress was still there. Like, he had already summoned him with his mana. So basically he had Egress until Egress was slain. Is
Yeah.
how it works from what I saw. because the mana was being used to regenerate them.
Okay, that makes more sense then.
But he ends up taking all the bears in his army, and he ends up going back to the campsite. But of course, the dingus A-class guy, like
who's
all
been
of his
utterly annihilated at this point. He's running back and he just stumbles upon all the bears fucking dead. And he's like, "What the fuck?
What the hell happened?" And then he ends up, which he also just like leaves all of his friends. Well, they're already dead, but like
Yeah,
he just
everyone's
leaves them
dead."
behind. And but also, so in the background, it's also cutting back between what's happening on the regular world versus in the game world. And we didn't mention this before, but so remember when we talked about how he ended up having to kill all the people who tried to kill him in that dungeon?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the guys was related to an famous S-class hunter. And when that happened, that S-class hunter was not very happy that his brother was dead.
Even
A
though his
little
brother was such
understandable.
an asshole.
Even though his brother was a dick, um, he was pretty mad that he was dead, and he was like, only 2 of them survived. And the association is like, hey, it was just like, it was not a murder. It was just what happens in a dungeon sometimes. And he's like, no, my brother was murdered. I'm going to kill these 2. And he's over, I think he's in America, and he ends up coming back. But he ends up going to originally, so the first person who shows up is the White Tiger guild leader, because this was a White Tiger Guild training mission. So he's showing up for his team, and he tries to get into the red portal, but he can't. But then this other guy shows up, and he's like, "Hey, is Jinwoo in there? I want to kill him."
And I love
And
their
they,
whole reasoning. He's like, "I'm after the other guy, but I want to kill this guy just because I feel like murdering
I
today."
just want to murder someone.
And I
Uh,
love the fact too that it implies that S ranks are kind of they're
Above the
completely,
law.
yeah, basically because their whole reasoning, I thought this was very compelling, where he's like, "What are you gonna do? Arrest me? Try."
Yeah.
Because they're
I mean,
so
like,
powerful. Like,
really, what is the world going to do? Because if there's a disaster level, like if there's an S class portal, like that opens up, only the S classes can go in and save people. So, like, there's really nothing you can do. Oh, one thing too we forgot to mention about the red portals too, is that even if they entered a C class dungeon, the red class is usually an A or above in
yeah,
terms of enemies. So they're going in and basically, and that's also to show you how strong Jinwoo is at this point. And that's why also the A class was struggling so much, because it's not a C class anymore. It's basically probably an S class at this point. But
yeah. I still couldn't get over the other party members just having a picnic and partying the whole time.
well, because so the A class guy comes in, he's like, "What the fuck? Why are you in jackets? Why are you having fun? What the heck?" And he basically is about to kill them. And Jinwoo just shows up and it's just like,
One shots him.
like he just flicks him
Yeah, he
away.
does the literal like anime, just like bling, gone.
Yeah.
Like
But of course, with that A class guy, guess who he brings along?
the ice elves.
The army of ice elves. And the very first, which was probably one of the best parts of the movie, not because of the actual scene, but because of the background noise happening in the theater, is the leader of the ice elves is like, "Oh, one of my warriors noticed that you were the strongest of the group, and he wants to fight you." And then
And before he can even finish his sentence, Jinwoo just lobs off his head. He's like, and
"Man, what do you want? I want to go home."
there was a guy in the theater though who literally just screamed in the background, "Yeah, fuck his shit up."
Or it was like, "Oh damn!" Like
No, one
there
guy
was
definitely
one
screamed. One guy definitely screamed, "Fuck his shit up." I was like,
there
okay.
through most of like the times where they either one shotted someone or someone's head went
Oh,
off, someone
there
went,
was
"Fuck
there was
yeah!" Like
there was a morbid ass like fucker in that theater because every time someone died brutally, this guy laughed, and I was just like, I'm a little afraid.
one of the best scenes was, I forgot to mention it. So when the A class guy first shows up there and is like, "What the fuck?" He ends up doing that anime scene where they're looking down and
Yeah,
their eyes are all big, and everyone in the theater was just laughing because it looked so stupid, but in the best way, and that was a great highlight too. Um, but eventually, Jinwoo ends up fighting them. Like all of the other ones, Jinwoo is just like, get
Well,
out of the fucking way.
we get that amazing like scene where right before that there he's having a conversation with the leader who can talk, which was a new development we hadn't
Well,
had yet.
and it's also so the leader could talk, but he was talking in the Elven language, and no one
Yeah,
could understand except for Jinwoo because he's the
which is
player.
yeah, it's just like the game is it's basically like any RPG where you can
Yeah,
just talk to anybody. Um, but it brings up a whole point where they're like, see, we're programmed to kill humans, but our programming doesn't tell us to kill you because you are different.
yeah, and he almost actually tries to at first be like, okay, like we if you give us the humans because they're basically calling him not a human at this point too, which is a interesting concept. Like I'm wondering where that's gonna go. And they're basically like, if you give us the humans, we'll let you go because you're cool. That's basically the mindset.
Well, it's
And
because
he's just
they
like,
know like
nah,
he's
fam.
kind of powerful.
And Jimu's just like, nah, fam, they're my friends. Also, this girl is my younger sister's best friend. I'm not gonna let her die. So
Yeah.
he ends up fighting them, and the guy's like, "Ooh, you in what army?" And he's like, "Boom, I got an army," which was
Yeah.
also
But there was also that scene where like he was kind of like, explain to me then what about your programming, and the ice elf starts to tell it,
yeah.
and then the game like kind of glitches out, and it's kind of like this whole implication that there's more going on that we know about at the
That
moment.
we yeah, which was also very interesting. So the fighting starts and his army is just killing those fucking elves and he's taking on the boss. But he knows he's not as strong as the boss at this point. So he is kind of struggling and he's Igris is helping him, but he's like, all right. At one point he goes, I need someone a little stronger. And he's like an A like I think he says an A class or stronger. And the A class guy starts running over and is like, I'm gonna kill you. Well, the elf is also trying to kill him, and he's like,
And the most
idea.
savage fucking scene in this movie, which was epic, but also like, holy fuck. He just straight up has Egress kill the A class so he can resurrect him as another familiar. And I was like,
Yep,
God damn. Like,
that honestly was one of the most badass, satisfying scenes in the movie.
it
Like,
was
I was
so
just,
dark though. Like,
it,
holy shit.
it was, but honestly, like, he deserved it. He was a piece of shit.
He
So
was a
now
he was a meathead, and that's
and
just
and his shadow army guy is also a meathead, if not stupider. So he ends
he's
up
just an exaggeration now.
and they end up basically kicking ass of the elf boss and which ends up clearing the dungeon. And then one of the best scenes is now this like Goliath shadow now. It's just being like he's going duh, 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 like Patrick when he's like we have technology.
Yeah. And then
Just starts
what did he name him again? Like I forget.
I don't know, but he was already done with him at the end. He's like, "Am I gonna regret
Yeah,
reviving you at
he's
this
like
point?"
Phil. Before I regret I regret bringing you back.
And the best part is like Egress, like the I forget his name, but he like turns to Egress and Egress is like walking away from him, like, yeah, get the fuck away from me. And then like all the other shadows are like, ugh, like get away. They all hate
Yeah.
him. But they end up going back and immediately well, at one point, so the guy who's trying to kill him ends up leaving because he's like, he's probably fucking dead. Bye. He's not. Uh, and then he ends up going like it ends up just being the four of them leaving. So they come out, and the White Tiger Guild Master All Might is basically like he's voiced by he's voiced by All Might, so he's All Might in my mind.
Chris Sabat.
Chris Sabat All Might. He was really channeling All Might with that voice. I'm just gonna say it. Um,
Whatever.
he's either Zoro, Vegeta, or All Might to me. Like it's those
Or
three voices. I feel like
Piccolo.
he just
He did Piccolo before he did
Piccolo's just
Zoro.
Zoro. Well, it sounds like Zoro.
Zoro's
So
just Piccolo. Let's be real
no,
here.
no. Um, he's Zoro. Anyways, so he ends up like he's like, oh yay, when he farts when he first sees the two. Sorry, I can't speak. First sees the two come out. He's like, oh yay, they're making it back. And then it's only Jinwoo and the E class girl that come out. And then the portal closes, and he's like, what? Where's everyone else? Because he's expecting the A class to basically lead them out and all his Bs to be fine, but no, they're all dead.
No, just
Um,
just this one significant girl and some rando basically
yeah.
survived.
And he's like, what? and he's trying to talk to Jinwoo, and like Gene was basically he grabs Jinwoo's shoulder and he's like, I wasn't done talking to you. And Gene was like, you should be thanking me. I'm the reason these guys are even alive at this point. Shoves him off, is like, let's go. And he gets in his little Jeep and leaves.
Well, there was the point where he looks him in the eyes and basically just says all that stuff. And I like the scene where like the guildmaster basically like he backs off and he immediately just goes, he's like, all right, let him go. And then he goes, we need that guy in our guild. Like now.
Let's recruit that guy, whatever possible. But it's not gonna happen. He's not gonna I don't think he will.
The recruiter already knows like that's not gonna happen. Yeah. So
if it does happen, it's going to be a very minor thing, and then he's going to switch guilds at some point. If it does, I don't think it will, but if it did happen, it would just be very brief. But yeah, and that's basically where it ends. And he brings the other girl home, and she's like, "I can't wait for the next one." And he's like, "Fuck, my plan failed.
This didn't work at all."
But maybe it did. So hopefully she goes back to school. And that's basically where it left us. And it just left us going, I want season 2 now.
And then they played the credits played. There was no after credit scene despite a half of us waiting.
Yep.
And the couple next to me that was watching the movie, they were so mad. Like after the movie, they were like, I paid like $20 for this. Like
I was just like, that expensive.
It was some price, but like they were very salty about it. Just like I'm like, geez.
I mean, like, honestly, I was fine with it. I got to see the first 2 episodes before most people, and it's kind of holding me over until we get it next month. So.
I didn't hate it like you seem to think I do. I was just kind of like, because I had watched it literally a week ago. I was like, I just saw all of this.
Yeah. Well, I had seen it a little while. If you had watched it when I first told you to, you would have liked it better. So you should.
No, I probably still would have. I probably still would have been like, I just saw this.
Beans, baked beans. Anyways, but yeah, that's where. Oh, and then when we got up and I looked over, so I had a bunch of people. Like it was people who showed up in a group, and they basically all sat in like the rest of the row together. So the guy I was saying to, number one, he was a little stinky. He kind of smelled like a stereotypical. Yeah, kind of like a My Hero Academia fan. That's the best way to describe it.
A convention goer.
Yeah, he was a little stinky, and I was like, "Ooh, you kind of." I was like, "Whatever." Like
a Smash Brothers player.
it happens. You can't control that. But then I look over, and I'm like, "These pieces of shit left that theater disgusting. Like they threw popcorn on the floor. They had their shit everywhere.
All their trash was everywhere. They didn't even like try to like tidy up."
Be courteous. If you bring food in, just throw it. There's a trash can outside. Throw it out. Like, be a good person. Like, come on. So that was
what was funny though was like it wasn't even just us. Like everyone around was like, "What the fuck?"
like this jerks.
Yeah.
You're making us weebs look bad.
Yeah, that's never gonna go away. But yeah, no, it was good. I mean, I
want to watch season 2 so badly now.
At this point, I'm just like, God damn it, I'm waiting for season 2 now.
I know. It's like it's really painful, but it will be here. It's the lineup for January is insane. Like it is insane because we have that, we have Solo Leveling, we have the Apothecary Diaries, we have Sakamoto Days,
My Happy Marriage,
and I think there was another one too. I think there was. I'm trying to remember.
I'll have to. Oh, Daima.
Daima, yeah, we'll have Daima, and then there was like another one. I'm like certain. But I am so happy. I'm glad that you really like this show.
It's interesting.
Well, I just think the concept is just like I really like the whole Dr. Stone. We got Dr. Stone too. For fans of Toilet Bound Hanako, you have that second season as well, which has been a bit. And then I'm sure there'll be a bunch of like cool new stuff that may surprise us, but it is
going to be a busy.
It's going to be a busy January. Lineup. Well, and probably just some that like the dub hasn't like finished yet. Like, because I know I'll probably watch in January Shangri-La Frontier. Stop yawning. Shangri-La Frontier season 2 because the dub is still in progress. So I'll probably watch that. So yeah, there's going to be a lot to watch. But I am so excited to watch Solo Leveling season 2.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a fun episode. But anyways, guys, once again,
Wait, no. The episode is not over. You have not said your facts. Please say your facts first, and then you.
No. Oh, that button's so much fun.
Unmute me. How long was I muted? How long?
Right after you brought up the facts.
That is so rude. You unmute me. No, you say the facts now as an apology.
No. Anyways, so once again, guys, thank you for joining us on the Gaming Collecting Podcast.
No,
Gaming Collecting
get out.
Podcast can be found on
Get
all
out
the
of our
major
podcast.
podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to find us over on the Superpod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com. It's an awesome site where you can find all sorts of different podcasts, videos, blogs. And you can find all the other shows we have over there, like Superpod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, Tommy's Video Game Ride Along, A Novel Console, Bar Silence, Fine Time, The Elder Trolls Gaming Podcast, Remember 64, Gaming Together, Friday Night Gamecast, and of course our three shows, Gaming and Collecting, The 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, The Retro Wildlands, Press B to Cancel, and the Pre-Order Bonus Podcast.
Right now.
Okay.
How
you
fucking dare you? You cheater. Using your cheater bar.
Anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next time.
No, you won't. I won't be here. I quit.
You say
if you keep muting me, I'm going on strike.
No, you're not.
I want a mute button for you.
No.
I want one.